All right, so this will allow me to handle the request for users, right? This query right here, we could use it if we go back to our views, right, in our assignment for rendering the profiles. For instance, this profile over here, right? If we go to assignments, we go assignment, and we go to the profile, and then 2, 3, 4. Would be nice if this data came from the server as opposed to coming from the local browser, right? So to do that, let's see if we can replace that. This user, the controller would be right here, right? This is where it's getting the user by ID. See that? We would like to replace this, and instead of using the local implementation of this service here, user service, which is this one right here, find user by ID right here. We would love to replace this. Notice that this code is exactly the same code that is running on the server. See that? We would love to be able to replace this by that server that we have on the, so let's do that, right? So what we're going to do here is we would like to be able to talk to the server. How do we talk to the server? So to talk to the server, we're going to introduce a brand new service, right, called the HTTP service. The HTTP service, which is going to allow us to programmatically generate a GET request, right? This same request that we were using earlier, right? This local host and then being able to do /user 1, 2, 3. This is exactly what we want to do. /user/ and then the ID, and fetch this data from the server. So let's do that programmatically from here using HTTP. So let's go to find user by ID. We're going to remove this, okay, and instead we're going to return whatever HTTP.get. We're going to programmatically generate this URL request. So we're going to generate a GET request to that URL. See that? Okay. And we don't want 1, 2, 3. We want whatever the user ID we have here. Yes? And then we're going to say add the user ID. That's it. Right? Actually, not quite. Let's refresh the profile page. And it didn't work. Okay, what happened? Let's see the network traffic. If we look at the network traffic, we'll see that we see that the last request was, you see that? That's exactly the request that we wanted to generate. See that? So the controller did generate the request. There it is. And we can even look at the response. The response is exactly what we want. What happened? Right? Well, if you go back to the controller that is calling this, right? Let's break this up into 2 steps. We're going to put this in a variable var user, right? And then we're going to assign it user, right? Because I want to put a breakpoint right here. Okay, and let's see what the server is coming back with, right? So if we put a breakpoint, let's go to source, let's refresh, let's do views, user controller, profile controller, and we put a breakpoint right here. Let's see what the server is really returning. Let's refresh. Let's hover over the user. Notice that it's not actually the user object we were expecting. Okay? Instead, it's some weird object, $sign state. Okay? What the server is actually returning, well, not the server. What's happening here is that because the server is running on one machine and the browser is running on another machine, right? That could be, halfway across the world. Yes? Okay? So the communication between them, right, is an actual network connection between the two. Right? So what's happening is that we're asking the JavaScript that is running on the browser to make a network connection back to our server, right? Wait for the server to respond with some data, right? And then what would happen if the server somehow goes down or is busy or doesn't respond? What would happen, right, normally, is that the browser would just wait for the server to come back, right? What if the server never comes back, right? What if there's something in the network that went wrong? The browser would just sit there waiting for the server to come back, right? We can't allow the browser to just sit there waiting for the server to come back. What instead are we going to do is that we're going to make use of what is called an asynchronous communication, right? We're going to have the browser use an asynchronous call to the server as opposed to a synchronous call. Right? We're going to have the browser say, hey, go off and do this. It's going to ask the browser, hey, browser, go fetch me this, right? But I can't wait for the server. It's because I need to go back and animate these images and listen for user clicking or dragging, right? The browser only has one single thread, one single JavaScript thread, right? We can't risk that single thread being blocked, right? Waiting for the server to come back, right? That thread needs other things to do, right? So the mechanism is to have the browser deal with it, and the JavaScript is not going to wait. It's just going to keep going. It's going to keep going. And what the browser is going to allow us to do is to register a callback, saying, "Hey, when you're done, when the server actually responds, let me know. Right? Let me know when the server comes back, and then pass me the data that the server came back." So what we get here is what actually we get is a promise that sometime in the near future, hopefully, right? Sometime in the near future, I promise you that I will call you back, right? Letting you know what was the result from the server. What did the server respond? Yes? Make sense? And the way it works is that the promise is going to allow us to register a function. I'm going to give you here a function that you're going to call when the server finally comes back with the data. And you're going to pass me that data in that function. Yes? So here's the function. The data hopefully is going to be the user, the user that came back from the server. And here we can do our model.user equal user. Okay? Right? So now if I refresh, indeed we have I hope this is Alice that came back. Wait, it's something promise is not a function. Oh, sorry. Promise dot then, I think. Did it work? No. Wait, is it success then? Maybe it's success. No, it's not success. What is it then? Let's put a then here. Let's put a then. Let's step through the code. Okay, let's see what came back from the server. Okay, so here's what comes back from the server. First comes back some status information saying that everything went okay, right? It has some headers, maybe some cookies that came back from the server to maintain state. If you open up the data actually contains the object, right, that came back from the server. So it comes back with some metadata, right, about what happened in the communication, but the actual data that comes back from the server is embedded in an attribute called data, right? So we're almost there. We could just say this is a response. This is a response that came back from the server, and the data is what contains the actual data that we care for, right? Which is the user information. So if we refresh, let's see the data. There it is. First name, last name, password, and everything, right? And we say continue. Notice that indeed we have Bob Marley, right? Whereas this data is now coming from the server, right? It's not coming from the local service. It's coming back from the server, right? So if we want, there's Alice, there's Bob, right? This is behaving the way it used to behave, but now the data is coming from the server. It's not coming from the local service anymore, right? We have 3, 4, 5, and here we have 4, 5, 6. You see that, right? So the next would be to obviously replace all the updates, the retrieval, the login, the register, replace everything, right? Using the same technique, moving everything back to the server and using the service to communicate, the client service to communicate back to the server. Okay? And that's the intent of assignment number 4. All right?